get into the video. It's a lot of people, people have been wanting me to talk about this for a long time. I always get, messages from people asking me, am I a Mason? Am I part of secret society? Wearing this shirt probably won't help. People will always speculate when you wear stuff like this, but you need to understand what this stuff is. And I put out the video on what's really evil on YouTube, so you get some kind of hint. But you really need to understand what this stuff is, because just like you and a lot of other people, I was skeptical. I was worried about what this stuff really entailed, and was it real? So it's important to know this stuff so you can get it in and understand what they're using against you. There's nothing spooky about it when you really understand. But when we start getting into secret societies, fraternities, this is where it gets a little bit different. And you need to understand what this stuff is about and what it really is on the surface. There's a lot more to it that people don't understand. So, like I said, Masonic friends, people, Masons email me all the time. People in secret societies talk about so many different things, and they are amazed about some of the stuff I know. But it's a lot to get into when it entails them and their true purpose. So one of the things that Americans don't understand is that when America established itself as the free United States, away from King George III, that this was supposed to be, unity. This was supposed to be something that was agreed upon by all the people. Colonial script wasn't being accepted. You had King George III raising taxes and making those taxes be paid in gold and silver that they had a monopoly on. And eventually, they wanted the colonists to pay everything back in gold and silver. And they couldn't have that. We couldn't afford it because, they would have to go to them to get it and then give it right back to them. Now imagine having to go buy money for somebody just to give them that money back. That's crazy. So revolution, war. But, since they were being oppressed by a king, one of the things they put in the Constitution was that no person shall hold a title of nobility, basically meaning there will not be a king in America, won't be a king of the United States. So this was the agreement, it was truly supposed to be for the people, by the people, and everything was supposed to be fair and equal. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is that a lot of these founding fathers was already members of secret societies. There was already Masons and in the Rosy Cross and, later in the Odd Fellows or what have you, so many different secret societies they was already members of that they had already pledged their fidelity to. And that was a big issue. That was one of the things that a lot of people just didn't really understand because, of course, it's secret and it's deep and it's ancient, as we're going to explain, we're going to talk about. Now, what people got to understand is the minute that they declared war or revolution against King George III, a lot of those Masons basically betrayed their brotherhood, and they basically went against, Masonry or against the code. Now, a lot of people will say that, well, Masonry was started in the 17th or 18th century. If you look up a lot of sites, they'll say 18th century in the 1700s. You get Freemasonry, which is bogus. It's much older. And to really prove that, we could just go look at King James, who we all know was a Freemason. Now, it's also people that would say that King James wasn't a Mason. He just worked with Masons and he had, dealings with them, some type of business dealings. But that will also show that Masons did exist on the time of King James. So the speculation can't be that far from the truth. And it would make sense that he would be a part of Freemasonry, since one of his best friends, Francis Bacon, is considered the father of Freemasonry. And King James added Francis Bacon to basically be one of the people who worked on the Bible. He was rumored to be the editor of the King James Version. And that's basically been proven if you follow the whole Bacon code and him coding the dedication pages to King James. Now, a lot of you know about this. When you look at the pages, as you can see, it's coded. The G that's right there on the page, on that first page, is the G we see in the Masonic logo. And that G is geometry. A lot of people think it's God, but it's geometry. Now, coded on the page are select words that when you fold the paper in half, basically lines up and basically gives you not only a pyramid, but the Masonic logo. Now, I printed out, probably can't see it's too bright, but I printed it out. I'll put it up on the screen so you can see it. But you can see clearly that they had that, and then they had two different ones Done. So once people figured out what this was, this is the new one, and the words are basically off so that people can't see what they was trying to convey to the Masons. And it's all about the wording and how the words line up and why they are put in certain ways in the Bible. So again, you have a King James version. It's probably one of the reasons why they had the revision of the Bibles in the 19th century and the 1800s to basically correct that, and why the Freemasons eventually would end up getting their Masonic Bibles. And the thing is, a lot of people, when you look at the Masonic Bible, you look at a regular King James version, a lot of people will say, well, the words is the same. But it's not about the words being the same. It's about how they line up. Just like it showed you on the page, words put in specific places so that they will line up and create specific symbols or mean specific things unique to not just Bacon, but to the Freemasons. And again, if you have Bacon's code or his alphabet, which is 22 letters in his alphabet, and the cryptex, whatever it would basically, be able to decipher a lot of the passages that's in the book. And, the code would be also knowing what pages to go to. So it's a lot to it, but the book is definitely coded by Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon is also considered the creator of the Rosy Cross or the Rosicrucian. And, again, when you look at the difference in the pages, it's like, why one, do the Masons have their own Bible? That's one thing. Two, why would they change the page? That basically gives it away, right there. When you look at the older versions, it looks exactly like that. And you can see where the words is changed and how the indenting is different at the bottom. Why change it? If it was absolutely nothing and didn't mean anything, why would they change it? So it's giving it to you right there, clear as day, Masonry. As soon as you open the Bible, before you start reading Genesis, you got Freemasonry right there. And we understand the story about Francis Bacon, how he was basically supposed to be the illegitimate son of Queen Elizabeth I and some Duke of Leicestershire or some crap. I believe his name was Robert Dudley. And we can find the symbolism to that as well in the Bible that he coded as far as him and his birthright, which a lot of people who study Bacon know he had an issue with him basically really being the heir to the throne left behind by Queen Elizabeth, but he couldn't be, put on the throne because he was illegitimate. So King James, took the spot, which is one of the reasons why you have King James of Scotland just coming to this position as the King of England later on. And again, for the people who don't want to look at King James as a Mason, you got to understand this dude was King James, Scotland. You have the Scottish rite of Freemasonry. So put it together and it all fits. So you got to understand one of the reasons why a secret society would be important and why they would even have to develop such a thing. Now we know we could trace it back to ancient Kemet. We can look at the whole craft of Amun-Ra and Imhotep and everything that the Masons today attribute to the ancient Egyptians as far as the creation of their order. Now, we can probably understand why the ancient Egyptians wanted to keep this information secret, to make sure that anybody that was initiated was basically on a spiritual path. Anybody who was taught this information was spiritually right. Because when we get into everything about, science and math and all the spirituality that this information entails, we can see how the manipulation of it could be used to basically do exactly what the Europeans have done, and that's take over, that's conquer. So again, it's rumored that the Egyptians made Thales and Pythagoras and the other Greek philosophers wait years, probably to see if they was on a spiritual level or if they could be trusted with this type of information. And we seen what happened once they went into Kemet and came out. They came out saying exactly what the ancient Egyptians were saying, know thyself. A lot of them was on that spiritual level, but you got to understand that, once Kemet fell, this began the rise of the secret society. And probably before it fell, they probably already was meeting in secret, going over this information. So a lot of people who study Greek antiquity know all about this. The Eleusinian Mysteries is basically considered the first ancient Greek secret society held in Eleusis, Greece, which Eleusis is based off of the Elysium Fields, or remember what Elysium is basically a place in Greek mythology where the mortals who was cool with the gods or had some kind of relationship with the gods went at death. They went to Elysium because they had some kind of relationship with the gods. But they would hold these ceremonies once a year in Greece to basically bring in initiates for the worship of Persephone and Demeter. So remember the story, how it goes with Demeter and Persephone. You have Hades kidnaps Persephone and marries her. She becomes basically the queen of Hades. And I'm going to read about this real quick because, it makes a lot of sense when you understand its relationship to ancient Kemet. Now it says, Persephone is the daughter of Zeus and Demeter. Homer describes her as the formidable, venerable, majestic queen of the underworld who carries into effect the curse of men upon the souls of the dead. She becomes the queen of the underworld through her abduction by and subsequent marriage to Hades, the god of the underworld. The myth of her abduction represents her function as the personification of vegetation, which shoots forth in spring and withdraws into the earth after harvest. Hence, she is also associated with spring as well as the fertility of vegetation. Similar myths appear in the Orient, in the cults of male gods like Attis, Adonis, and Osiris in Minoan Crete. Clearly, we can see this whole, worship of Persephone and what it entails is the same as Osiris. Just talked about this with Christmas and the whole Chorax festival that begins December 10th through January 8th that was celebrated. And, it's about the raising of the crops. Basically, when the water recedes and the crops start to grow, and it's dealing with basically the rebirth of Osiris, which is basically dealing with the rebirth of vegetation. It's the same stuff. They just put it in different things, showing clear as day. They got the same stories. They understood what the ancient Egyptians was doing as far as pictorially creating these stories to basically speak about, mysteries of, earth, science, the universe, nature, or what have you. So the Greeks basically picked up on the same thing. They picked up on the same thing and started doing the same thing and created their own deities to basically reflect what the ancient Egyptians was doing. This is just one example of that with Persephone. So they got to think about it and look at it and understand that, we're talking about the conquest of Egypt. Egypt has fallen. Now the people at the top already have this plan, laid out. They understand exactly what they want to do. And the purpose of a secret society is, of course, you're going to need help. You're going to need to be able to bring people in to help you out with what you're trying to do. Now, of course, it will only be a small group of people at the top who knows the true agenda. But they understood, one, that, white people was coexisting with the Africans, and that not many of them would probably go along with the overall plan that these Europeans wanted to basically hatch out, which is why probably before they took over Kemet, this secret was hatched out, this plan was hatched out, and they made sure they had everybody in place to go along with it before they did so, because there was absolutely no reason for them to basically go in and conquer Kemet, which is why they had the Persians do it first, and then they took it from the Persians, so then this way they can step in and be like, we took it from the Persians, it's basically ours, and, we'll work something out. But by this time, the Persians had, seen a lot of the Egyptians flee, and the ones that stayed, it was fighting off for a long time, as I talked about. And everything was completely different by the time that the Greeks took over. So it was easy for that generation to basically look at it and forget that, wait a minute, the Greeks was once their allies. We're talking about the Persians, ruling for a couple hundred years before, the Greeks took over. So they used that generational gap to where those new people that was in Kemet, that was basically brought up through this Persian rule, wouldn't really understand that, the Greeks should basically give us this land back. And they didn't, of course, because this was a part of the plan. So making sure people are on board and in line with what the plan is going to be is essential to their progression. You got to think about what they ultimately would do. It's amazing. And to coordinate all of that in secret, away from general public for so long, shows you the power of a secret society and what they can accomplish when organized. But one of the things a lot of people was not thinking about is universal law, when understanding a secret society and how they are structured, and understanding that these people at the top understand universal law and the people at the bottom do not. So with universal law, a lot of people got to think about it. If I told you to go rob a bank and bring me back the money, you would be like, hell no. That's crazy. Why would I go rob a bank and risk everything and bring you the money? But if you did that, if you went and robbed the bank and you got caught in the process, you couldn't come back and be like, well, he told me to rob the bank, so I robbed it. You would still go to jail. I would deny it and you would go to jail. Plain and simple. You got to understand that universal law does not punish the person who gave the order. That's the secret to it. It doesn't punish the person who gave the order. You are your own person of your own free will. It is up to you to choose to act or not act. Now, a person can put you in a position that compromises you, but you got to really think about how you got in that position in the first place. Plain and simple. And in some cases, you have to fight. And that's what it's about. And a lot of people just, had fear. Fear is the most powerful weapon on the planet. Plain and simple. And they understand this. So again, the pyramid, the symbol that they use for so-called Illuminati or what have you, is the perfect symbol. Because they understand that the many at the bottom is going to basically make it possible for the completion or the agenda to be fulfilled. Without those bottom blocks, the many of them, the top blocks won't stand. Plain and simple. So they basically manipulate and use. And that's basically what a secret society is when you really understand it at its core. The people at the top is going to rule. They understand everything. You have to look at it in the same line as the Sith. You have two people that know it all. Two people that caused this whole big intergalactic war. When you think about Star Wars, two people who was in the right position, the right connections, the trickle down effect that basically affected everybody. Pyramid is a perfect example because the small people at the bottom is going to hold the majority of the weight. And then finally, once all these people are in position to get the structure perfectly right, they can finish with the capstone. And them being the capstone, they can see 360 degrees. Plain and simple. They can see everything, while the people on the bottom have to hold their position so the people at the top can rule. And it's basically the perfect structure. And it's exactly what they are using. So when you go back and look at how these people would come back in later and infiltrate in America and start setting up these secret societies, understanding that we can't beat the people. We have to create this structure, this power structure, and make sure we have implanted our people that's going to make, our agenda come to fruition. And we're going to use the people to make it happen. And that's exactly what they did. And as I said before, they used religion, patriotism. These are the keys that is allowing the secret society and the people at the top to rule over you. Who are the initiated? A lot of people are not seeing these people's lives. A lot of times you see a person come into a position of power, you have no idea who this person is involved with. So the people who are initiated, the people who are part of these societies, they are your presidents, your senators, your congressmen, your judges, your doctors, your lawyers, or what have you. The people who are going to have serious positions that are going to be needed to basically keep the structure going. Plain and simple. If we was to basically take the most important people in our society and use them as blocks, building blocks to create the structure, which is the pyramid, then who would you pick? You would want to pick the strongest people possible. So you need your military. You need your doctors, you need your judges and your politicians and your presidents or what have you to complete the structure. But you're going to rule at the top. You're going to be the top block. And this is one of the reasons why they throw up the Rockefeller sign and the eye and everything. That eye represents them being at the top, seeing 360 degrees. And a lot more, of course. Plain and simple. 360 degrees equals 666 when you break it down. And 3 and 6 gives you 9. So it's all there. Understanding what these people are talking about. They understand, they know. So you would have to make sure these people who come in these high-ranking positions are a part of your society, because you're going to be using them to build your agenda. So, of course, this is one of the reasons why they got into every facet of the school system. It's one of the reasons why the government basically took over school. This is the purpose of university, plain and simple, to find the initiated, to find the people who you're going to basically indoctrinate and bring into your society. This is what the sororities and fraternities are about. Plain and simple. So you have the oldest, fraternity in America, which is Phi Beta Kappa, founded in 1776 at William Mary College. So they was basically private until they was outed by a student from Harvard University working with John Quincy Adams, basically outed them because they had little secret initiations and what have you, and they was outed. But of course, they was later basically, they later went public, and then it was recognized as a, collegiate, scholarly, organization that was fine, everything cool. These people are just, collegiate people now, and they're scholars, and now they're part of the American Collegiate Society for, sororities and fraternities. It's all legit now. And then everybody else caught on. And you have a lot of black folks that's proud to be a part of these fraternities and these sororities, not having no idea as to what the Greeks did to their ancestors and who these people really are. This stuff comes from your ancestors' ancient knowledge that they stole, stabbed them in the back, created these societies to basically use the information to build themselves up, to create the pyramid. And they're using you and putting you in that position to hold them up. That's what it's about. So yeah, you go ahead to college, you be a collegiate scholar, you go on to be a prominent person, a doctor, a lawyer, what have you. You see these people throwing up their little, they shit to let people know, especially celebrities, we'll get into this, to let people know who they are, what they represent. Plain and simple. They throw it up. And yeah, you're an actor now. You're an athlete now, musician or what have you. We're going to use you, same as all, to hold that structure together. So I know a lot of people want to understand, what they're talking about, in the deepest parts of these secret societies of what it's all about and what it's the rituals all about and everything like that. And if you watch a lot of my DVDs, for the most part, you understand this already. But when we ask the question, how did they get in power so fast? This is how. This is how they did it. They did it behind closed doors, secretly, discreetly. And we were in chains. We were wherever we were while these white men were meeting and discussing this knowledge. This is not about, these secret societies are not about a bunch of white men sitting around drinking brandy and smoking cigars and talking about knowledge. It's about them organizing and applying that knowledge so they can build their pyramid, plain and simple, so they can build their structure, their agenda, plain and simple. And this is what it's about. And this is exactly what they have done. Don't get caught up in, the rituals, the stuff that they show you purposely to scare you away from what's going on. Keep you running back to that Jesus. That's what it's about. So when you really grasp it, look at everything I've talked about with ancient Kemet and where they got the information from. This is what's being talked about behind closed doors. The application of your energy being used to fulfill agendas while basically not defying universal law. Because when you pay attention to everything that they have accomplished, we have given to them. Pay attention. You're talking about the wars that were fought by us. You're talking about the laws that was passed by us. You're talking about everything that was given, the gold that we gave them. People wrote down stuff on the paper, contracts, binded us to these contracts that we, unwillingly or really didn't care about, because as long as they're not affecting you personally at this moment in time, a lot of people don't care. That's why societies are able to flourish, because if we can't see what they're doing and how it's directly affecting us today, for the most part, we don't care. But we enter into these agreements not understanding what they mean, and that we are giving ourselves over to universal law, while these people at that top block, guess what? They get to chill. No consequences to them, to us, by acting of our own free will and doing something that we shouldn't be doing.